We start the day's headlines with the latest show of federal force on the streets of Washington, D.C., this time from President Trump himself.
We're not playing games. We're going to make it safe.
The commander-in-chief met with law enforcement and National Guard troops this afternoon, thanking them for their efforts patrolling the nation's capital. Trump claims that the city is overrun with crime. His administration launched a federal response in the Democratic-led city last week. That's led to hundreds of federal agents and National Guard soldiers on the streets. That is despite statistics that show that crime is largely down in the city. Turning to the Middle East, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said today that Israel will rejoin talks with Hamas to release all hostages from Gaza and end the war. Meeting today with army officers and cabinet ministers near the border with Gaza, Netanyahu also said he would finalize plans to take over Gaza City. The Israeli military has begun urging evacuations of the area and has called up tens of thousands of reservists. Meantime, in Tel Aviv, thousands of protesters rallied to support the families of the hostages and push for an end to the war. Such protests have become more frequent amid growing frustration over the handling of the war. While in Gaza today, hospital officials say Israeli strikes killed at least 36 Palestinians across the territory. Russia launched a rare attack on western Ukraine overnight, adding further uncertainty to recent efforts at ending the conflict. The barrage of more than 600 drones and missiles was one of the biggest of the war, striking a U.S.-owned electronics plant among other targets. At least one person was killed and 15 others injured. Today, Russian President Vladimir Putin and his foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, met with top Indian officials. Speaking to reporters afterwards, Lavrov once again insisted that Russia play a role in any security guarantees for Ukraine.
The aim pursued by the so-called coalition of the willing is to shift focus from elimination of the root causes of the conflict and achieving a sustainable settlement to providing security guarantees for Ukraine without participation of the Russian Federation. This is so obvious to everyone that I do hope this plot, this adventure, will fail.
For his part, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russia's overnight attacks are just the latest sign that Moscow is trying to avoid peace talks. U.S. and European officials released a rough outline today of the trade agreement they informally struck last month, though some details remain unfinished. According to a joint statement, the U.S. will maintain its 15% tariffs on most goods arriving from EU member countries. However, the rate for autos will stay at 27.5%, pending further moves by Europe to lower tariffs on American goods. Both sides called the deal a first step that will be expanded over time. The details laid out today are seen as a political commitment and are not legally binding. California state legislature is upping the ante in the growing national debate over redistricting. Lawmakers in Sacramento are moving closer to passing a new congressional map that aims to net 5 seats for Democrats in next year's midterm elections. The map is meant to counter the one passed by the Texas House yesterday, which would help Republicans win 5 seats. California Democrats say they feel obligated to push back, while Republicans insist the redistricting hurts voters.
We don't want this fight, and we didn't choose this fight. But with our democracy on the line, we cannot and will not run away from this fight.
You move forward fighting fire with fire, what happens? You burn it all down. And in this case, it affects our most fundamental American principle, representation.
California's lawmakers don't have final say, though. If passed, it would go to voters in November for approval. That is not the case in Texas, where the state Senate is expected to approve its new map tonight, which Governor Greg Abbott would then sign. The Supreme Court is letting the Trump administration cut nearly $800 million in research funding from the National Institutes of Health. The cuts were part of a government push to rid such agencies of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, or DEI. Advocacy groups say the slashing of hundreds of NIH grants will, quote, hurt public health and human life. The court was split 5-4, with Chief Justice John Roberts siding with the court's 3 liberal justices in wanting to keep the funds in place. Hurricane Erin is slowly beginning to turn away from the U.S. East Coast, but not before lashing the shoreline with strong winds and dangerous waves. The Category 2 storm is forecast to gradually weaken over the next couple of days as it moves away from the U.S. and Canada and turns farther out to sea. It has remained hundreds of miles offshore, but the massive hurricane has sent huge ocean swells and violent surf crashing into piers and spilling over dunes along North Carolina's Outer Banks. Meanwhile, officials further north in New York are warning people to avoid the water.
The ocean is rough. We have waves that are expected to be between 10 and 15 feet, which are very large. So that is why, out of an abundance of caution, we will not allow people on the beach or in the water today.
All beaches remain closed to swimming today in New York City and on Long Island. Many more have been shut from New Jersey to Maryland and Delaware. Even in Massachusetts, waves were expected to reach 10 feet with high surf advisories through Saturday. The State Department says it's reviewing the records of more than 55 million foreigners who hold valid U.S. visas for potential violations. According to the Associated Press, the department says it carries out, quote, continuous vetting with an eye towards overstays, criminal activities, and providing support to a terrorist organization. In the meantime, the nation's immigrant population dropped for the first time in decades. According to the Pew Research Center, the foreign-born population fell by nearly 1.5 million between January and June. Just under 52 million immigrants, the vast majority here legally, live in the U.S. The decline follows an unprecedented spike in illegal immigration, with a record 14 million people living in the U.S. in 2023. Public tours of the White House have reportedly been canceled for the foreseeable future due to President Trump's plans to build a ballroom on the grounds. The administration canceled tours scheduled for next month and is no longer taking bookings past September. That's according to multiple congressional offices who arrange such visits for constituents. An estimated 500,000 people take that tour each year. The White House says the $200 million ballroom project will begin next month, though no specific start time has been announced. On Wall Street today, stocks slipped ahead of a closely watched speech by Fed Chair Jerome Powell tomorrow. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gave back about 150 points. The Nasdaq fell around 70 points. The S&P 500 fell for a fifth straight session. And Dr. James Dobson has passed away at the age of 89. A therapist, presidential advisor, evangelical broadcast personality, and conservative activist, his public stances on contentious political issues won him fans and foes. Correspondent Lisa Desjardins looks back on his life in public view.
Mr. President, you've had a busy day, haven't you?
From the Oval Office to broadcast airwaves, James Dobson helped shepherd the rise of the modern religious right.
You do not need anger to control children.
He rose in the early 70s, a PhD in child development, offering parenting advice, who soon founded the group Focus on the Family. That would grow into a media empire, a pioneering blend of politics and religion, at its peak reaching 220 million people around the globe each day. Dobson lobbied both presidents and the public with his view of biblical and traditional family values.
We receive here at Focus on the Family something on the order of 200 to 250,000 letters and phone calls a month. So we have a feel for what's going on out there.
And was especially strident when it came to abortion and gay marriage.
Because they both attack the family, both weaken the family, undermine it, and compromise it.
Dobson's views on LGBTQ individuals were extreme, pushing gay conversion therapy, an idea debunked by medical professionals as harmful. He took those fights to the courts, co-founding the conservative legal organization that became the Alliance Defending Freedom. In 2004, President George W. Bush earned Dobson's first explicit endorsement, triggering a new era of influence with his listeners.
I beg you to go to the polls on November the 8th. Please don't even think about sitting out this election.
Leading to his significant 2016 endorsement of Donald Trump, breaking with other evangelical leaders.
James Dobson, great man, great guy.
He told the Christian Broadcasting Network,
couldn't be more pleased with him. Now, he's not a perfect man, but I'm not either.
Dobson is survived by his wife, children, and grandchildren. He was 89. For the PBS News Hour, I'm Lisa Desjardins.
Still to come on the News Hour, taking stock of housing in the U.S. as the president proposes cuts to rental assistance. Why the federal government is considering taking a stake in chipmaker Intel.
This is the PBS News Hour from the David M. Rubenstein Studio at WETA in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.